Hello, and welcome to the Orchestra Parent Night. Thank you so much for joining us virtually. We know your time is extremely valuable, and we'll try to go through this information as concisely as possible. My name is Miss Diskel, and Miss McCoy is the other orchestra director here at League City Intermediate. The best way to get a hold of us this year is through email. We're really good with email, and we try to get back to you within 24 hours. If for some reason you need to contact us by phone, we have our direct line on the screen. We are only able to check voicemails at the end of the school day, and so it's usually difficult for us to return phone calls, but we'll do our absolute best to get back to you. Again, the best way to communicate with us is always through email. So tonight, or today, whenever you are watching this, the items that I'm going to cover in this presentation are what dates we're looking forward to this year, some items that you're going to complete online for us, information about the Booster Club, what's new this year, our home practice assignments, and then special information that's only for beginning parents. So I will dismiss the students that are returning, like the Philharmonic, Symphony, and Chamber parents. So due to COVID-19 this year, we are temporarily suspended from holding in-person events. So at the moment for our fall concert, we are going to try to create some kind of recorded experience for parents to enjoy. Stay tuned for details about that. We're still working on it. And then we have tentatively scheduled 3 other concerts for students. And I've put the dates here on the screen, but they're also in your orchestra calendar and on our Google Calendar available on the same website. We have a winter concert scheduled at League City Intermediate. And then there's a spring season concert that's a pre-UIL event for the older students, Philharmonic, Symphony, and Chamber. And there's a beginning festival that happens in April that's obviously for beginning orchestra students. And the last concert of the year is scheduled to be on May 3rd, and that's at League City for all students. Just a reminder that all concert events are considered major grades for students and are required for attendance. If there's a special situation, we will talk to you about those special situations when the time comes up. Hopefully we'll get to do some live performances this year, but if not, we'll just keep being creative. So there are 5 forms plus 2 survey style forms that you're going to fill out for us online that are required this year. We really need all of these documents turned in for every student, just in case we need them for future events. So the first document that you will, these 5 documents at the top are going to be you're going to download a form and then upload it to us on our website. The first form you'll need for that is our emergency form. And yes, this is the same emergency form that you've probably filled out for the school, probably filled out for sports at League City. But unfortunately, none of those departments can talk to each other, so we do not have copies of those yet. So the emergency form you'll fill out for us is just for us. And new this year for parents that have done this with us many times, we actually don't need our insurance cards this year. We do not need a copy of your medical insurance, which is great news. One less step for you. We also have a field trip form. This is a generic field trip form, just in case we end up getting permission to go on any kind of field trips this year. In the future, if we go on field trips, you will always get a specific form for that event, so you can confirm or deny permission for your student at that time. There's also a medication form in case your student has medication that he or she would need if we were to go on a field trip. There's an option on that form where you will indicate none if you don't have any medications that your student takes, so it is required from all families. We have a form for photo and video use. This is to help the orchestra be able to use videos of your students performing in groups on our social media pages. No students will be identified individually. You'll always have students in groups. And so I hope that everyone will fill that out and answer yes. Let me know if you have any concerns about that. And then lastly, of the required forms, there is a contract that CCISD requires this year that it has to do with students agreeing not to use vaping products or e-cigarettes. And that's a vaping contract that's required from all students. There's 2 surveys that we need tonight, and that's the handbook acknowledgement survey, and also you're going to complete a form letting us know what size and color your student would like for their free t-shirt order. There are several optional things available online as well. We have a new style of auto decal available this year. They're actually pretty cool. You can get the silhouette of your student's instrument. There's a different instrument silhouette for violin, viola, cello, and then also for bass. And you can choose options that also include your student's name. Optional also tonight, you can join the Orchestra Booster Club. And joining the Booster Club comes with some really cool perks, so I hope you will check that out. You may want to choose to refer to our handout about recommended apps so that you can download the appropriate apps for your use and your students' use at home. And then there's also an option if your student wants additional t-shirts, or if you would like an orchestra t-shirt, you can order additional t-shirts. Each student does receive one shirt for free, as we mentioned on the previous slide, but then if you need to purchase additional shirts, those do cost $10 and those are optional. So just briefly, I wanted to remind everyone about the option for your student to enroll in private lessons. Private lessons are desperately needed during this difficult time for students to continue to excel on their instrument. Our students don't get very much of our time at League City. I have to admit that in our larger classes, sometimes I get to spend less than 60 seconds per individual student. And to really refine their skills on their instrument, they need one-on-one instruction. This one-on-one instruction at this time due to COVID is obviously taking place virtually, but the value of having a highly qualified instructor who is speaking individually to your students' strengths and their needs is such a valuable experience for your kids. It's not remedial. It actually helps our students to be the most advanced students in the program to be participating in private lessons. If you have a brand new beginner and he or she is like so excited to get started on their instrument and they love to be accelerated, they love to work ahead of the class, then private lessons is a great place for them. If you have a student in one of my advanced ensembles who usually gets bored with the music that we play in class, taking private lessons is a great way for them to get other supplemental material to work on to get better on their instrument. It is strongly encouraged for all members of the chamber orchestra to participate in private lessons due to our high level of performance expectations for those students. There's a program that goes through CCISD to help with lessons called the Music Enrichment Department. And this allows students to be pulled out of orchestra class to attend those private lessons during the school day. There is very limited space available for this because we only have 2 practice rooms on campus. So if you have a brick and mortar student, I can only host 2 lessons per class period per day of the week. So that's how limited the space is. And your student would see, like, let's say it was Tuesdays, your student would have their lesson Tuesday during orchestra class time, and that would be once a week. And it's usually a cost of about $25 per session to that private teacher, but it really helps your student to have tremendous growth on their instrument, and we highly encourage it. So how do you sign up for private lessons? We have a form at the bottom of this website that links you to, there are 2 forms to complete. One form for saying that you want in-school lessons with the Music Enrichment Department, and a second form agreeing to either use Zoom or Microsoft Teams as your preferred platform to interact with those private teachers. If you are interested in doing lessons after school hours or on weekends, we also have a list of qualified private instructors that is included in that same file. You can just contact them by email or by phone on your own and set up lessons outside of filling out the forms for the school. So if you'd like to go with me, you fill out those 2 forms and I help connect you with a teacher, and there's a $10 enrollment fee, and that'll all come directly to me. There's a possibility that you might be placed on a waiting list. At this time, we do not have a waiting list for any of our private teachers, but we may eventually run out of space for brick and mortar. And if you are placed on a waiting list, I will contact you to find out how you would like me to handle your position on the waiting list. So I wanted to speak just a little about the Booster Club. For those of you who are new, our Booster Club organization is a lot like the PTA program, but it's just for our orchestra and our orchestra students. At the intermediate school and high school level, our extracurricular programs grow so big and we do so many things that we need additional support outside of just regular volunteer time or PTA volunteer time. That's why we have a Booster Club. On the screen, I've listed our fantastic elected Booster Club officers. They are highly involved in helping to make sure our program is as successful as it is today. So thank you all so much for volunteering your time to be our officers. We would love to welcome more of you onto our team. We have lots of committee opportunities, and if you're interested in volunteering more regularly, please do email us and we will put you in touch with the Booster Club to let them know to have you on the list as someone who's ready to help us. The Booster Club contributes really highly to all of our events and programs that we put on for the students with the orchestra. It's so awesome that we have so many families that are willing to help in lots of different ways. And we would love to have more of you join us in our monthly meetings. This year, we're going to be holding all of our meetings virtually. Our next meeting is scheduled on Thursday, September 24th at 7:30 p.m. If you are interested, any parent is welcome to join us for the meeting. You do not have to be a member, but members are, of course, encouraged to attend. To find out the link, you can email me directly, and we'll also always inform every parent about the meetings via email, and it will be posted to our social media. If you're curious about the Booster Club, further on down our website, there's an option for you to join this year. I wanted to remind everyone about our membership perks. If you join and make a donation at the gold or silver member level, you are going to receive a certain number of reserved seats at our very popular orchestra concerts. Our concerts are very well attended by lots of orchestra family and friends, and usually they're completely packed houses. And so I know that having reserved seats can really ease the minds of busy families. And so if we're able to offer concerts in person this year, we will be happy to provide you with those reserved seats. But either way, we appreciate so much your donations to our program. We use every dollar towards helping your kids to have a great experience in the orchestra. The orchestra is really active online. We have a great website, which you've already found since you're here. It's lcisorchestra.com. And we also have all of the cool regular social medias that you would expect: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. So please do feel free to find us on those locations so that you can like and share all of the neat things that we'll post that the students do throughout the school year. So if you take away anything from this evening, the one thing I really hope that you and your family will consider joining is our remind text messages. If you have a smartphone or if your student has a smartphone, we would strongly suggest that your students and at least one parent at home join our Remind text messages. So there's an app that's called Remind, so you can download the app and then just input the code that corresponds to your child's class. All the class codes are listed below. Or you can just text to the phone number 81010 and then say in the body of the message the code that goes with your student's class. So for example, if I had a beginning violinist, I would say to the 81010 number @BEG-VLN and hit send, and then it will reply back to me to get some information. What this is it's a communication platform that allows me to send messages to remind students and parents about orchestra events or upcoming due dates for assignments. And it's a one-way communication. I never see your cell phone number or your student's cell phone number. And it also is not linked to my personal phone. It's actually through a computer program. And so it's a really easy way for me to remind students about upcoming due dates, or maybe you need to bring something special to class the next day. It's always going to be related to our program, and students find it especially helpful. If you sign up and then you feel like you're getting too many messages from us, you can always reply stop or unsubscribe to the messages, and it will remove you from the system. I have had parents mention in the past that both mom and dad and student all signed up, and then it's kind of a lot of messages. So feel free to pare it down to what works best for your family, but we strongly recommend signing up for these messages. We wanted to talk a little bit about our expectations for our classes this year. These procedures are the same that they've been every year, and so if you're new to our program, this will be new information to you, but for everyone else, it's pretty much the same. We rarely have any issues with students being off task in orchestra class. We're very busy and the kids are excited to be there playing their instruments. But here are our procedures for if the students are not following our self-explanatory rules in class. If students are off task or playing when they're not supposed to, or if they've forgotten supplies, they're going to receive a warning and we'll mark it down in our conduct book. The second time they have some kind of an offense, we're going to ask them to fill out this behavior think sheet, and the page is on the screen for you to look over. It asks the students to reflect back on the problem that they had in class, give some reasons for why it happened to them. Maybe they've forgotten their class book that they needed to have, but it's because the book has been lost and they've checked all these classes for it. And then it gives some choices for them to reflect on how they could have made some changes and what they could have done to have been better. And they will bring that home to get your signature at home, and then they'll bring it back to us. If there's another offense, a third offense, that will result in a before school detention. And this is obviously for brick and mortar students. I'll get into Clear Connections in just a moment. And then we will repeat this entire process for a maximum of 3 times. So if a student is having lots of trouble and we get up to 3 offenses with 3 detentions, beyond 3 detentions, we will have to move on to referring the student to the office, and they'll have to speak with the principal, which usually results in a Saturday detention. Detentions sound really scary, but they're not. I just wanted to show, particularly brick and mortar families, what a detention looks like. A lot of students get really freaked out the first time if ever, they see a detention slip because they worry that it's something that's maybe going on their permanent record. This is just a communication piece between us, the teachers, you, the parents, and the students. It doesn't go to the front office. It doesn't go in students' folders. It's just a document between those 3 parties. So we would fill this out with the student's name and let you know what had been the issue in class. And then our detentions for brick and mortar students are going to be in the mornings from 7:15 to 7:45 a.m. And a student would report to our room and they will have to sit for 30 minutes. And it's essentially a grown-up timeout because our orchestra students are such high achievers that if we gave them like a consequence of, you have to come in and help the teacher in the morning. Actually, a lot of kids would really like to come in and help us in the morning, or if they had time to do homework or other busy work, they would find that useful. And so we want just a quiet time for them to reflect and a little bit waste their time if there had been an issue where they had been wasting our class time. That's our appropriate disciplinary action there. If you have a clear connection student who receives enough offenses that you have to move to a detention, we will refer you to the Clear Connections principal for action at that point. We are not going to be calling in Clear Connections students in person to serve detentions. If you're a student or a parent who has questions about our discipline actions or anything else regarding this process, refer to our handbook to read over it in more details, and then send us an email if you have any more questions. This very rarely happens to any orchestra students. We have really great kids and really great families, and so we don't anticipate this being any issue for anyone. So a couple of things that are new for this school year. I know it's a challenging time for everyone, and so we just wanted to bring up a couple of things that are new. So home practice. Everyone's expected to practice at home, obviously, and if you're a returning student, you are used to a process called HPOs, and HPOs are at the moment disappearing. They're not to say that home practice is disappearing, obviously, but we're changing to calling them something like home practice assignments or home practice journals, and they will be given on a weekly or a bi-weekly basis, which depends on what type of assignment it becomes. The expectation for the older students is five days a week for 20 minutes to maintain your skills, and more is better to improve your skills. For beginning orchestra students, we will start smaller. Your beginning students only have so much that they know at the start. So we start with 3 days a week for 20 minutes for beginners. And the focus on these home practice assignments is going to be on goal setting. So students have something that they're working for specifically each week, and then they're marking their personal improvement either on paper, or we will do recordings or video recordings so they can see growth throughout the school year, even honestly throughout the 9 weeks. So sorry, the print on this is kind of small, but this is an example of our first practice assignment we're giving this year. So online, students will fill in a chart where they will indicate that they want to improve a specific goal this week. And then they were given certain practice assignments in the chart below. So this is actually a sample from the Philharmonic level. So every level of orchestra will look slightly different. But we gave specific songs and specific measures we wanted the students to work on. And then they will fill in which days that week that they practiced. And then they will simply put an X in the column of which items they practiced. This is just a very basic example where they started dipping their toes into goal setting and started to refine which things they're going to practice at home. The students would fill this out on It's Learning, document it each day that they practice, and then hit submit on Sunday night so that Monday it's turned in correctly. Practice assignments are always going to be a Monday to a Monday, so students have a full week to complete the practice assignment. So this is the end of the presentation for older students or returning families. Philharmonic, symphony, and chamber families are finished. Feel free again to email us if you thought of any questions. And remember, as you go through the rest of this website to fill out the forms and to make your payments, that you only need to make one store purchase today. There will be several things that you can choose to purchase, and if you are selecting those items, make one purchase and then reference that order number or receipt number when you fill out the documents on this page. Thank you for listening. Older students' families, Philharmonic Symphony, and chamber families do not need to continue this presentation. Just briefly, we're going to touch on a few items for new families who have beginning orchestra students. So a question we get a lot from new orchestra members and new orchestra member parents and guardians is, what can you do to help? You know, most of you are probably not musicians. Maybe you played a little bit when you were in school, but you know, starting brand new on an instrument is a foreign concept for you, and you feel like there's not a lot you can do to help your student. There actually is. It really would help a lot if you would set up a regular practice time with your student at your house. Provide a specific place at home that is okay for your student to set up and practice. For violins and violas, they should have their music stand set up, and all violin and viola students should be practicing from standing position right now. We will teach them how to play from seated position, I'd say in the second 9 weeks. So starting in late October, maybe early November, they can begin sitting down and playing. For cellos, all cello students should have a chair where their feet can firmly touch the floor with no arms on the chair. And then for bass students, there's a required stool for students to have. And there's a document on this page you can look at for the stools. But help them to have a little special spot and a particular time of day where they can always practice at home. That'll really help a lot for them to improve. And I know your kids will say they don't want you to, but listen to them practice. And I know you're very busy, but even if maybe you're just in the same room doing something else while they're working, it makes a huge difference to them to know that you're listening to what they're working on. You can interject encouragement when they get frustrated. They really look to you for that support, even though these lovely teenagers or preteens like to pretend like they're not. They value your support and input like that. And yes, it's not always going to sound perfect. They're beginners. Sometimes it'll really sound quite interesting. But if you show encouragement and you're supportive of their work, you're really going to be impressed by how much they're able to do just even at the end of the first 9 weeks. So I have a little chart that I really love that talks about why students can't skip practicing. So, you know, it's interesting. Orchestra is a curricular subject. It's part of your student's school day. But a lot of times it falls underneath all the other things that the students have to work on at home. You know, they practice their math homework, and they practice their science homework, and they practice their social studies homework. But oh, we ran out of time and we didn't play the viola tonight. Oops. And I understand that that will definitely happen sometimes. Believe me, that happens to me still as an adult. But this chart references if student 1 practices 20 minutes a night for 5 days a week, and then student 2 who practices 4 minutes a night or nothing, how much of a difference in minutes of experience that ends up being even 1 week later. The student who is practicing already has 100 minutes of experience over the student who did not practice. And then 1 month later, it turns into a student who has practiced has over 400 minutes of experience, whereas a student who has not practiced maybe even has 80. And so the questions that are asked at the bottom are, who do you expect will be the better player? Who would you expect to know more? And who would expect to enjoy playing their instrument more of the 2 students and to be more successful? Music is not a talent, in my opinion. Music is a learned skill. And for the students to spend time at home that is planned and careful in your family structure, it'll really make a big difference in what their experience is and how much fun they have on their instrument. So we wanted to just briefly tell you about a cool assignment that's going to be coming up. It's a long-term assignment. The students don't know about this just yet. It's coming out later this week or possibly early next week. We always do a themed achievement chart for our beginners. And this year our theme is Orchestra Crossing. It's a parody based off of a Nintendo Switch game called Animal Crossing. Many of your students might be enjoying playing. This will help, this themed chart will help us to keep track of student progress during the first semester. So we're going to give them a chart. It's probably going to be a digital chart this year due to COVID-19, and it's going to help them keep track of objectives on their instrument. And then they're going to have little stickers that they receive for marking their progress on those objectives. And those are going to be called little mile markers. It's a joke on the Animal Crossing themes for the miles that they get called Nook Miles in the game. And every sticker will be tied to a graded event, like a graded test that they play in class. The rewards that the students are going to get for participating in this graded program are going to be obviously the stickers, and then students who complete all of the objectives on time with 100% accuracy, they'll receive a special limited edition Orchestra Crossing themed t-shirt. And for all the students who finish all the objectives, even if they didn't get a perfect score, we're going to have some kind of incentive style party that we host in early January, possibly early February. If we're allowed to do an in-person party, we will do an in-person Orchestra Crossing themed party. Otherwise, we'll create a virtual event that will be invitation only for those students who successfully completed the entire chart. Beginning families, thank you so much for listening all the way through this. I know it's a lot of information, so please do feel free to email us anytime if you think of any questions. As you go through the rest of the website, remember that anything you opt to add to your cart for our online store, you only need to make one payment for all of those items this evening, and then you'll reference that order number or that receipt number when you fill out the forms related to those payments. Thank you so much for your time. I know it's very valuable, and we're excited to have you as part of our orchestra family.